You're listening to In Kap We Trust for the Always Next Year Podcast Studio Network. You can find the team on our Twitter at ANYP Podcast or on our website, www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. And now, to bring us in, the Jackdaws.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and such over my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son still had me life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.
Hello and welcome to another episode of In Kap We Trust, kind of, here at Always Next Year Podcast. I'm your host, Shane. I'm joined as always by Rob. Rob, how are you?
It's been a roller coaster for the last week or so for the Phillies, and it's been a roller coaster for me too, so hopefully the roller coaster's back up on the next cliff that's about to go off of here.
Yeah, it's a merry-go-round from hell is what I was going to title this, and now I realize that they are just strictly a Jekyll and Hyde baseball team.
They're just toying with our emotions right now.
They are. You sit there and
plain and simple.
You have the highs of the Cubs series, followed by the immediate, inevitable, awful lows of the Padres. And then we go ahead, and not to say that Boston's a good baseball team right now. They're struggling in their own right, but they're still Boston.
Yeah, it's still really tough to go up there at Fenway and win.
Yeah, so nothing about this team makes sense.
No.
I can't remember the specific numbers right now. It was a Johnny Heller tweet again. The kid's just been gold so far this year. He's been like Philly's own ace of spades over there. Or ace of spader, whatever that guy's Twitter handle is. But, essentially saying that the Phillies are, I think they were 9-3 against teams over 500 and 2-11 or 2-7.
That sounds about right.
It's just nothing about them makes sense.
And guess what? We got the damn Marlins coming up again,
who are 7-6 against us on the year right now.
Probably get
11-35 against the rest of the division.
What are we, 1-5 in our last 6 games against the Marlins?
Something like that. They're atrocious. But let's take it back. So we were recording when Bryce Harper had the grand slam. We actually stopped recording. We'd finished up for the night. They were down 5-1. I remember referencing it earlier on in our last pod. They were down 5-1 heading into the 9th inning. And I was like, well, it's a good thing that we're recording right now. We don't have to talk about this dog shit baseball team. And then Bryce Harper did Bryce Harper things. And that's the night that he walked off with the grand slam.
I think you might have been on with someone else at that point because last week I was only available during mornings. I think you...
Was it Steve? Maybe it was me and Steve after a whiskey ramble. That actually might have been it because I think he was like 14 whiskeys in. So
That's only a few below average for him.
Yeah, it was a shorter segment. So let's take it back to that week. Let's talk a little positive right now. The Cubs come in and we sweep a team who right now currently leads the NL for a wild card position, I believe. Right?
I think they're back on top in the Central, actually.
Seriously?
Because the Cardinals kind of got screwed over yesterday.
That's right.
They lost a rain-shortened game to Milwaukee.
Right.
That was shortened after the 8th inning.
So, regardless, a team in better position than what we are, naturally, we sweep them. So, the obvious highlight is the Bryce Harper thing. So, let's start with that. Bryce Harper over the last, essentially since, San Francisco, maybe? Maybe a little earlier than that?
It started probably in the same... maybe when he hit that home run at the end of the Arizona series, if you want to count that.
Yeah.
The game where we were getting shut out, he hit a home run in the 9th inning.
Kind of a very Pat Burrell-ish kind of a stat right there.
Yes.
But since that point, we've started to see the $330 million that all of Philadelphia wanted to see. We're starting to see that product right now. And one thing that's coming along with that for me that's most impressive about Bryce is the fact that he consistently sits here and gives credit to the city as a whole for... did you hear his postgame after the Grand Slam?
I heard bits and pieces of it. I was working at the time.
Right, you were working evenings all week this week. So Essentially he referenced how much that, he loves the city, loves playing for these fans. And it's all kind of cliche stuff, but you can feel the authenticity coming from his voice. You can see that on the field, how exuberated he was after that moment. He says it was one of the best moments of his entire career. He included the city, he included the fan base, he included his teammates, everything. He said all the right things, and he wore all the right things in terms of what you could physically see out of him and the way that he was presenting himself in those moments. That's a player I want to connect to. And we're watching a product that we paid for. And it's finally feeling like, okay, Bryce is ready to put this team on his back. We just need one other piece of this puzzle to find some consistency. What's been your impression so far over the last, I would say, 20 or 25 games of Bryce Harper?
Oh, Bryce has been awesome. And he's rounding into what I expected him to be all along. He seems like he's starting to get a lot more comfortable here in Philadelphia. Not that he ever wasn't comfortable, but he certainly seems a lot more at home here. He's the kind of guy who can really relate to the fans, as you said, because he's a guy who wants to win. That's his first and foremost. He just wants to win. And you know what? His numbers still aren't, by some standards, on par with what a lot of people were expecting, but I feel like the fan base still loves him because when the Phillies need him, he comes through. He's the guy who, when you have runners in scoring position late in a close game, you want him at the plate more than anything else, and he's the one guy on this team who you can trust to come through, as he did in the ninth inning of that Cubs game, as he did earlier in the season against the Dodgers when he had that walk-off hit, and as he has in numerous occasions, especially as he's gotten hot here in August. So, yeah, I'm really encouraged with what I've seen from Bryce, and it's only going to get better. Honestly, he's at 27 home runs right now. I would not be surprised if he reaches 40 by season's end, the rate that he's going at.
That's a hell of a prediction. Statistically right now, grading out as baseball's most clutch offensive player, for one. So again, all these overrated chants, he does come through when you genuinely need it most. He comes through when the opportunities present themselves. He is top all of baseball in that category.
And that's where he earns his money right there.
And he's kind of fluctuated between that top three for the majority of this season. You mentioned he's at 27 home runs right now. Prior to this stretch of real Bryce Harper that we're getting, 2015 MVP version of Bryce Harper that we're getting, he was on pace to have to finish the year with 29 home runs. I think 29 home runs and 102 RBIs. In this stretch of time, he has now upped his projection total to 35 home runs and 114 RBIs. He has increased his batting average projection from 243 to 252, and his other two numbers didn't increase too much. But his slugging percentage went up 40 points, obviously with the home runs there. So Bryce Harper right now is heating up at a time where the Philadelphia Phillies badly needed an offensive weapon to do so. Going along with Bryce is JT. So another guy who's come under a ton of scrutiny because do you feel like he's like the least sexy? He is a superstar. He is the best defensive catcher. He is the most valuable defensive player in all of baseball. His offense has always been good, not eye-poppingly great. He's not a 5-hole hitter is his biggest problem here. But do you feel like he's like the least sexy great player that the Phillies have had in a long time?
He's definitely up there. I can think of a few other names, not really off the top of my head, but he's definitely up there as far as not really being a sexy name, but being a very productive player. But yeah, he's done a nice job. He's kind of come into his own of late, like Bryce has, and he's rounding out to be exactly what we expected him to be, which is a 270, 275-ish hitter. He's got a pop to hit 25 home runs, maybe 90-ish RBIs, somewhere around there. I think that's what he's on pace for. Does that sound about right? 80
like
to 90?
285-ish right now. I think he's on pace for 27 home runs and I think 84 RBIs last time I looked.
Somewhere around there, which is pretty much exactly what we expected of him.
Yeah, he is, and again, he's another one who's kind of coming on strong right now, and it's easy when he has those impactful moments. They are fucking impactful. 2 grand slams in the last 15 games. He's really beginning to reap the benefits of the short alleyways in Citizens Bank Park. Mainly that right center field short alley right there. He is strong enough that he can put a normal line drive swing on the ball to the opposite gap, and it very well may just carry. this is what we got. This is what we wanted out of JT. They're the plus power, the gap to gap stuff. 275-ish, like what you said. We're getting a little more out of that right now on the average side. The rest of that power and slug is kind of coming with it. The rest of that on base percentage kind of teetering there, but obviously you show signs of getting on base in ways other than just the base hit. Enough cannot be said about his defense. He's ridiculous.
Absolutely excellent.
I think he's thrown out a career high in base runners. Why
he's coming up on it. I think he's about one short, but he's got
one shy?
One or two shy, but he's got 50-ish games left, 40, 50 games left.
Like 41 maybe? No, I think they're in the 30s now. Doesn't matter.
I think it's like 42, 43, something like that. I don't know. I haven't really been keeping count.
Okay. Why the hell do you run on him? Like, what possesses anyone to try to run on JT Realmuto in an era of baseball where nobody steals bases at a clip that it used to be used? Why are you running on him?
Not just that, he's throwing out the best base stealers in the game. He's throwing out, the Ender Inciartes and the guys like that who have ridiculous speed and routinely swipe a lot of bags, even in an era where not a lot of stolen bases are happening. It's not like he's just throwing out, your average base runners. He's throwing out the top base runners on each opponent.
He is, and then the thing that drives me, not drives me insane in a bad way, but I sit here, I'm just mind-boggled as I sit here and see the guys who should not be stealing bases against anyone, let alone JT Realmuto. And most often, these guys and first base coaches are sitting here and they're relaying their signs back and their information in between innings saying, I think that we can move on this pitcher. I don't think people are necessarily stealing on JT Realmuto, but so long as he is part of that equation, don't fucking run. Just do not run. I mean, if you want to keep running and giving the Philadelphia Phillies outs, by all means, but you're a dumb baseball team if you're doing that at this point. So let's shift over to an offensive member who is colder than cold. How cold is cold? Ice cold. Andre 3000. Outcast.
There you go. Nice.
I'm pretty sure I fucked up that quote, but whatever. How cool is cool? What's colder than cold? Whatever. Outcast, by the way. Listen to them. Go back to the early 2000s. They're fantastic.
My God, man. That's a throwback Thursday right there.
Yeah, sure. He's fantastic. What can I say? So fantastic that I can't remember the exact lyric from that song. But let's talk about Rhys Hoskins for a little bit. So he is easily the Philadelphia Phillies' most maddening piece right now. And when you take a look at a team that employs Nick Pivetta, Vince Velasquez, Drew Smyly, Jason Vargas, Bonesport Jake Arrieta, Andrew Knapp. I was trying to think of someone else. Sean Rodriguez. Like, of all these pieces, the one who pisses me off most is Rhys freaking Hoskins. What's going on with Rhys right now? What kind of things are you seeing in the game? I know that both of us have kind of taken some time to only watch highlights and listen on the radio and not listen or not watch these games on TV. But what have you noticed about Rhys over the entire second half of the season so far?
Well, it seems to be like he's kind of stepping in the bucket, which is always a really bad habit to get into. He's trying to pull everything, which is another bad habit to get into. And those two kind of go hand in hand. When you try to pull the ball, you do end up stepping in the bucket a little bit. He really needs to snap out of that. Over the last 2 weeks, I think it's 11 games they played in the last 2 weeks, he's hitting 118. He doesn't have a single run batted in. Forget about home runs. He doesn't have a single run batted in the last 11 games. And the cold streak's gone on longer than that. I think it's over the past month he's hitting 134, if I remember correctly. It's been abysmal, and it's such a shame because Bryce, the two guys, the guy in front of him and the guy behind him, Bryce and JT, are hitting the ball so well. Just imagine how much more productive the offense could be if all three of them were hitting, and if Rhys wasn't hitting, even if he's hitting 200 during that stretch as opposed to 134. It's so maddening right now. He's colder than Antarctica right now.
That's melting too. So,
well, he's certainly not the cause of it melting. That's for sure.
He is not. The biggest thing that I take away from his struggles are the fact that we do not have another true middle of the lineup bat that could theoretically slide in. Like, we had so much depth entering this year that if everyone was healthy and if everyone was performing up to their capabilities throughout the entirety of the season, if Rhys Hoskins goes cold like this week, it truly is that old adage of next man up. Maybe you can slide JT in there. We found out this year that he's just not a middle of the lineup guy power-wise. He's certainly coming on that way right now. But the only real bat we have there is Bryce Harper. And he's going to pretty much stay in that 2 or 3 hole, primarily the 3 hole. We don't have another 4. So putting Rhys Hoskins in the leadoff spot, he is going to draw walks. He's going to generate a lot of pitches seen. He's going to find ways to kind of get on base here. Steve was locked out of the house because Stephanie decided to lock the door, despite the fact that I said, go unlock the goddamn door. Steve is coming.
I approve of your choice of beers, by the way, Steve. Molson Canadian.
Molson Canadian, there you go.
I had to check the address to see I was at the right place. I'm like,
were you?
Did I get this wrong? No, it's right.
Oh, good. I was supposed to say, you're trying to break into one of my neighbor's houses. That would have been brilliant. Steve has just walked in, by the way, host of Whiskey Ramble. He'll probably sit down on a few things on this, and then he'll be in on some other segments tonight as well. But you can't have Rhys Hoskins, back on topic and track here. You can't have Rhys Hoskins in the leadoff hole when you do not have another actual reliable power threat in the middle of the order. It just doesn't work. By the way, hold on. I'm going to have a slight conversation here with Steve as he's plugging shit in.
Yes.
When you turn on flip that switch, unplug the fucking fan. I'm going to hear it through the microphone. My noise reduction software is awful. So didn't need to sound like we're in a wind tunnel again. Sorry for the whole middle of this segment right now.
I'm sure listeners are actually really entertained by it.
They probably are. But I'm getting texts from Steve saying, he's locked out of the damn house. Steph's not unlocking doors for me. The dog's barking like crazy. Steve's bringing up Canadian beer. He's about to turn a fan on, and we're talking about Rhys fucking Hoskins' cold streak. The only person who appreciates this right now, Rhys Hoskins, because we're going to stop talking about Rhys and how bad he's been at baseball. Because I'm totally off track and off topic.
All right, well, I'm just going to throw out a couple more numbers. He's hitting on the season 227 against right-handed pitching, which the majority of the pitchers you face are going to be right-handers. That needs to be better. But the number that pisses me off the most on the season, 239 with runners in scoring position.
Yeah, you got to be better.
A guy who's in the middle of the order, a guy who's hitting in the 4-hole, you're going to come up with a lot of situations where you have guys on second, guys on third. You need that 4-hole hitter to be better than that. You need a 4-hole hitter to ideally be in the 275 to 300 range with runners in scoring position. 239 is terrible. That's god-awful. That's inexcusable. And
that's been him offensively all year.
That he needs to be so much better at that. And I'm just hoping that the change of hitting coaches at Charlie Manuel can get through to him and get him back on track.
Yeah, so one thing that you notice from Rhys, and it's been fairly well documented at this point as well. I think Salisbury's talked about it a handful of times, and he's pretty much the best that there is right now in Phillies reporting. He is so pull happy with all of his power. You do not have to throw him anything, or if all you have to do to be successful against him is essentially throw it in the second half or outer half of the plate. That's literally it. He's going to try to pull it every goddamn time. I hope that they get back to one of the things that made him great outside of the fact that, and he's always been a guy who can see a lot of pitches. He's always been a guy who's had a pretty good eye. He was always able to use the entire field. Didn't always necessarily have power to all fields, but he was able to sit there and still, drive the ball to the other way or to the other gap, even on a low line drive, just something to utilize that side of the field. With this entire launch angle movement, I would hope that someone can get to Rhys over this offseason, or if they have time for the remainder of this season, find that lift again to the opposite field as well. You can half the fastballs he's seeing are 94, 95, 96 miles an hour, flat, straight as a fucking arrow on the outside corner, and he tries to pull it, and it just doesn't work. If they can get him to excuse me with his hands and just run into a few, the team's going to be so much better for it. We can eventually slide him back into the middle of the order spot there. He's a maddening baseball player, is really all I can say on him.
It's so frustrating. And you know what the thing about Charlie Manuel, though, is that he found a way to get the most out of Pat Burrell, who is kind of a similar hitter to Rhys in the fact that he is very pool happy and kind of had some bad tendencies at the plate. If Charlie could get through to Pat Burrell the way that he did, you hope that he can get through to Rhys the same way.
You do. Again, I don't know how much he's really doing. I think he's just casually kind of talking and existing in the Phillies dugout right now. I still believe that move was made entirely for the fans.
Absolutely was.
And I'm not prepared to sit there and say that there are guys in that dugout who are not going to sit here and approach him and say, "Hey, dude, can you help me?" And I would hope that Rhys Hoskins would. I just don't know that this is something that's going to happen over the last 6 weeks of the season. It just doesn't. It doesn't feel like it's moving in that direction. Couple other things in terms of ice cold. I hate Maikel Franco, but do you think that the Phillies have any regrets right now in sending him down and keeping up and starting at third base Sean Rodriguez and Brad Miller, or Scott Kingery, who is most definitely not a third baseman? It's probably his least effective defensive position on the field.
Yeah, I think they have some regrets about it, and it was a really poor move by them. I mean, it was essentially a scapegoat kind of situation there, where
he was the John Malley.
They were struggling. Roster. Yeah, and I hate John Malley, so John Malley was very.
And I hate Maikel Franco.
John Malley was very deserving of getting fired,
but Franco was deserving of a send down. But hindsight 2020, right now, playing that,
he wasn't playing well, but I wouldn't say that he was deserving of a send down. I mean, he's still an excellent defensive third baseman. His bat has been, for the most part, bad this season. He started off well, but he's been pretty bad since then. But he's still capable of, getting on like a 4 or 5 game hot streak where he hits a couple home runs, maybe carries the team for a couple games. You're not going to see that out of Sean Rodriguez. You're not going to see that out of Brad Miller. I mean, Kingery, yes, because Kingery's, although he's cooled off a little bit, he can hit a little bit, but his defense just isn't there.
Yeah, third base just isn't the spot for him. It's weird because shortstop was a position that he ultimately was not going to have long-term success with, and so we thought he turned himself into at least a serviceable major league shortstop last year with that added time. It took a lot of repetition. It took a lot of seeing the baseball and making those throws again from that spot on the field. Third base, he just has not had that same flow, and I don't know if part of it is he's being shifted to center field or left field on occasion. At least half the week. It's a different arm action. It's just different everything. But third base, for whatever reason, for an infielder at heart, is not really working out for Scott Kingery defensively. I hate Sean Rodriguez. I hate Brad Miller. I understood the move mainly because Franco's a god-awful baseball player. But my biggest thing was, if he doesn't project well as a bench player for you, and your coach and manager is a guy who uses his entire bench almost every single fucking game, and you went into the season with reservations about him at third base, or at least you should have, it appears they didn't, that is 100% on Clentak right there. If this was seriously the thought process here, why the fuck do you not upgrade that position? He is an idiot. And now we have out there with little man bun Sean Rodriguez who can't hit for dick, and then a bamboo plant that died.
Yeah, that bamboo plant was good for 3 games?
5 games.
Something like that,
yep.
Yeah.
5 games.
I wouldn't say that I hate Brad Miller, because sometimes he'll come up with a big hit. He's a
serviceable bench guy.
But I can't stand Sean Rodriguez. Sean Rodriguez was a mediocre bench player on a mediocre Pirates team. Why would you expect him to be a decent bench player?
Left-handed pitchers, but that's all he should be doing.
He's slightly above average against left-handed pitchers.
He's pretty good against left-handed pitchers.
He's okay against them. He's marginally better than some players.
Well, regardless, if that is his role,
you can't expect the guy to be a big, a contributing member of a good baseball team.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what it all comes down to. Is Clentak and that front office failed them at the third base position going into this season, and they certainly failed again at the deadline. And then, how can anyone look and say, shit, I think that the two of them are better than Maikel Franco on an everyday basis? Franco is maddening as hell, but I would prefer Maikel Franco in the lineup over either of those two asshats and allow those two to be on the bench and serve in that particular purpose. That, to me, makes sense.
And if anything, the Phils should be playing Franco right now to... he gives them a better chance to win than those guys do. And B, if you want to try to get rid of him in the offseason, you can't have him at AAA right now. You need to have him come up and hopefully get some good games out of him, drive up his trade value a little bit.
I don't think they care about trading him. He's just going to be done.
Whatever it is, Anthony Rendon better be our third baseman next year.
We have things to talk about with
Yes.
that later. So let's talk about kind of the rest of the division right here. This is what drives me crazy, and this goes back to Ruben Amaro Jr. And that entire kind of era of the front office and baseball approach and building this organization and building this franchise. You look at the Mets, they have Pete Alonso, right? And great pitching staff, mostly acquired via trade. Acuna Jr., the Marlins, the oldest player on the team might be 22 fucking years old, outside of, what's his name? Starlin Castro.
Yeah, I think I get him and Neil Walker. That's about it.
Neil Walker doesn't start for them, though, does he?
I don't know.
He might, honestly. I have no idea.
It's
I don't watch
Marlins.
Marlins games.
No.
But then, again, point being, there's so much youth there that you should be excited about. Juan Soto for Washington. Same thing. Victor Robles. Like, look at all of this division right now and all the youth that's here. And then look at the goddamn Phillies. We have a 25 going on 26, Rhys Hoskins, who can't hit for dick right now. We have Scott Kingery, who people had reservations about giving him that 5-year contract that was nearly unprecedented without ever stepping onto a major league field in that type of a capacity. It's kind of working out, but he's not a superstar. And then what? Would you right now, going into September, we are, I think, a game and a half out of the second wild card spot, a game and a half or 2 games now, I can't remember, out of that second wild card spot. You need to put your best players out there. And you could make the argument right now that, now granted, our starting pitching, honestly, is doing okay. They're just not going deep into games. But should they falter, would you bring up a Spencer Howard or an Adonis Medina even, or Jones? Would
Absolutely.
you entertain those options? So would I.
Absolutely.
I don't understand why these people in this organization sit here and say, well, because they haven't taken the natural old school progression in terms of how they get to the big leagues. They're not ready. The fuck out of here. I think all 3 of them pitched 2 or 3 years in college, and all threw a lot of innings in college too. Get them up here.
You really think that a broken Zach Eflin is a better option than Spencer Howard at this point?
Yeah, that's absurd to me. Spencer Howard needs to be up, and again, he may not be here next year on a full-time capacity to start the year anyway, but that's invaluable. Even if this team doesn't make the playoffs, get his ass up here and let him get some big league innings under his belt.
It's like I've talked about before with Adam Hazley. It's a baptism by fire kind of situation.
Same thing with Kingery last year. These
Exactly.
are things that you need. Allow them to have the growth points now. That's big. And then on the defensive side of things, to bring it back to the third base and tie this back together,
Your boy Bohm.
bring up Bohm and let him play every day there at third base. Defensively, he's still got some stuff to prove, though he has seemed to have improved greatly from what the original scouting report on him was coming out of college. Put him up there. There's a middle of the order bat, too. That's another bat that's there that can legitimately offer you some power.
Yeah. Got to do that. You
That's
also
an
got to
upgrade.
keep giving Hazley ample playing time.
I agree, but Dickerson's pretty good.
Dickerson's pretty good, but Hazley's a young player who has a cutout future here if he does play well. So you want to, you can't just call him up and not have him play.
The Hazley thing's awkward because I love Adam Hazley, and personally, again, I too would rather him, for long term, it's more important for him to be out there and playing every day. I 100% agree with you there. But Hazley's probably not going to be a Philly for much longer. He doesn't project as a center fielder. Andrew McCutchen's going to be here for another 2 years out in left field, we think. If Bohm can't hang at third and he is blocked by Rhys, if we don't move on from Rhys over at first, the next natural position for him is left field, and Bohm's a more powerful player offensively than what Hazley's going to be. Hazley's a good contact guy. He's a well above average fourth outfielder, but he's not an everyday center fielder. Mickey Moniak is.
See, I think that Hazley could turn into an everyday center fielder.
I think he could, but for him to succeed and project out to be the player that he's supposed to be, he's a left fielder. He really is a right fielder, but
let's put it this way. I have more confidence in him to project out to what he's going to be as a center fielder than I do a Mickey Moniak.
Really?
I do, yes. I think that he would be a great two-hole hitter for this team once the rest of the lineup kind of fills out around him. I mean, if you have Bryce at 3, and then hopefully you have Rhys, or maybe, hopefully, Anthony Rendon at 4.
Yeah, the Anthony Rendon talk will not get quiet right now.
No, it's not. And it's not going to get quiet until he signs with somebody.
It's going to be Washington, I think. I do think they're going to find a way to make that work.
God damn it. I wish that team would just become irrelevant again.
They're kind of fun, honestly. Like, I shouldn't be entertained by them, but I kind of am. But let's go to a game of Would You Rather here. So we each prepared 3, or around 3, I think. Would You Rathers here. So me and Rob are going to give each other some scenarios here, and we're going to have to respond by selecting one of those 2 options. So Rob, why don't you get us started?
All right, you're going to love this one. Would you rather... We actually, I think, went over this hypothetical situation before on Twitter. Would you rather eat a pickle or lose the World Series on a walk-off home run?
Lose the World Series on a walk-off home run.
Jesus Christ, man.
Yeah.
Your Phillies fan card is going out the window.
First of all, you want a specific answer, ask a specific question. You didn't fucking say that it was the Phillies. It could have been another team I was rooting for and in rooting interest for a betting purpose.
God damn it. All right.
You can't rephrase, it's done.
No, assume it's the Phillies.
Nailed it. Lawyered.
Asshole.
Killed it. All right. I'll move into mine. If it was the Phillies, I'd have to probably still say I'm sorry, but I'm not eating that fucking diseased penis.
Man. Your dedication to this team is very questionable.
It's an issue, only when it comes to pickles. But they're an awful bullshit. It's just they're terrible. They shouldn't exist on this planet. All right. Just to appease you now with the Hoskins things, would you move on from Hoskins and try to acquire a pitcher? Or hold on, let me actually read what I actually put here. Would you move on from Hoskins in efforts to move, or with the effort to move him for a pitcher, or trust that? Jesus Christ, man, I don't actually type in English apparently.
Good Lord,
move
man.
on from Hoskins or keep him and work with him and Bohm as your corner infielders to start next season.
I would rather...
That's essentially what I was trying to type.
I would rather trade Hoskins for a pitcher, go all in on bringing in Rendon, and then move Bohm over across the diamond to first base.
Yeah, I think a lot of Philadelphia right now is with you. So let me ask this again. If this was after the home opener this year, where Rhys hit a grand slam, points into the dugout, and put us up, I think, 8-3 at that point?
Yeah, something like that.
Saying the same thing? Still?
No.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. At that point, I'm riding Rhys all the way until he retires.
Yeah, all of us too. All right, give me your next.
All right, my next one is, would you rather have the Eagles win 5 Super Bowls before Dallas does and pass them in total Super Bowls, or would you rather have the Phillies win 3 World Series during Bryce's tenure, the 13-year contract?
Fuck. I would rather 3 World Series. Yeah.
So you don't want a World Series win over eating a pickle, but you would rather have 3 World Series wins than 5 Super Bowls.
Yes.
Jesus Christ.
Look, man, baseball I invest in every single day for 7.5 months.
To the point of eating pickles. That's where you stop. That's where you draw the line.
Until that comes up. But
Good Lord,
mercifully,
man.
no one's ever going to put that thing in front of me and say, here, they're either going to win on this pitch or you're going to have to fucking eat a pickle. Like, it's never going to fucking happen. But I admire your efforts in continuing to put me in the predicament there to have to decide. All right, would you rather sit first row behind the Phillies dugout at a World Series game, but to your right is the everybody hits guy, and to your left is the pistachio chick yelling anti-Semitic things throughout the entire section for the entire game and will not get ejected, and it all gets blamed on you? Or would you rather take an annoying first date and sit right beneath the scoreboard that would answer every one of her questions, but instead she has to ask you because you can't see it?
I absolutely hate that second situation, having to explain everything to everybody.
I know you do.
I can assume that I would be able to get drunk enough at a baseball game to ignore the pistachio chick and the everybody hits guy. So I'll take that first row seat at a World Series game. I'll probably be like 17 beers deep or something like that. I don't know
that anyone should ever get that drunk at a World Series, unless, of course, you're really losing bad. Or if the person sitting next to you is anti-Semitic.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Your last one.
All right, so would you rather live in an igloo in Alaska for a year, but with television so that you can watch all the Philly sports teams, or would you rather go 3 months without watching Philly sports teams?
Live in an igloo and watch Philadelphia sports. First of all, who's visiting me in an igloo? No one. So I don't ever have to see any of you
That's right,
humans.
I forgot you hate people.
That's a pretty easy take right there. All right, my last one for you is one game to win it all.
Yes.
You can select 2008 Cole Hamels, 2009 Cliff Lee, or 2010 Roy Halladay.
I'm going with 08 Cole. He's the only one who actually got it done.
Okay. You do know that Cliff Lee did pitch pretty fucking good in the World Series.
He did pitch pretty well.
And you do know that Roy Halladay turned in one of the best pitching performances ever.
Absolutely.
I'm surprised you answered
But
that
Cole
so
Hamels?
easy. I would have just turned the show off.
I know that he didn't get the win in Game 5 of the 08 World Series. That was
But he got
JC
the
Romero.
win because Ryan Madsen. Fuck that guy. Gotta hate him. I can't believe you answered that so easily. I'm
going with the one who was actually a World Series MVP.
Yeah. All right, well, so we've talked about it a little bit, and so I already know at least one of your moves or decisions here. Let's play GM for a day, and we'll wrap this one up pretty quick here. So we'll just go 3 moves each instead of 5. 3 moves each. You're Matt Klentak, GM for a day. What are your 3 most critical moves in the offseason?
Well, the first move is to go all in on Anthony Rendon, which inevitably means moving Michael Franco at some point. So,
Michael Franco is just dead.
Well, yeah, but that's one move is new third baseman. Hopefully it's Rendon. If not, then hopefully someone at least adequate. So that's one. Number 2, adding a starting pitcher, which we talked about. I'll tie that in with doing your due diligence on trading Rhys Hoskins. Hopefully you can get a 2 or a 3 starter in exchange for him. So that's my second move right there. And my third move is shoring up the bullpen.
Okay. So we amazingly will have 3 different takes here. You're all in on Anthony Rendon. I am all in on Garrett Cole. I have a very specific need. We're going to have to overpay for him, and I don't give a shit. This is time where you have to be the big boy now. You are a major market team with a fat fucking wallet. Flex that muscle. Go ahead and overpay. So that's number 1. Number 2, I am moving Cesar Hernandez and sliding Scott Kingery over. It has been too long for Scott Kingery, a minor league Gold Glove at the second base position, to not be playing second base. Cesar Hernandez, decent enough for the Phillies throughout his entire tenure, really. But he's so replaceable, it's not even funny. So that's my next one, is making available the second base position. And then my third one is extending Gabe Kapler to a 19-year contract.
Jesus.
I'm fucking kidding, man. No, I'm signing Cole Hamels to be the number 3 or 4 on that team. It's risky. We saw how that worked for the Yankees going ahead and signing J. Happ to a contract at 36 years old, giving him that 3 years. To me, Cole has expressed the desire to come home. He pitches well in this ballpark. He loves this city. To me, you risk it. You give him the 2 or 3 years, whatever it is that he wants. I know he will be going into his age 36 season, but you risk it. And I think that if you go in with Nola, Cole, and Hamels, well, that was awkward.
Cole and Hamels,
yeah, right. Nola, Garrett, and Cole. It's all fucked up. But if you go in with those 3, and then if Jake is still here, if he's your number 5, whatever. If it's Vince Velasquez and he's pitching the way that he's pitched over the last couple of weeks, all right, fine. I don't think Pavetta's getting another shot in the rotation. He's actually, when he's been good, he's been really good in the bullpen. When he's been bad, he's been fucking Nick Pivetta. And then Eflin, I don't know what to think about him. I would shoot him to the fucking moon. He drives me goddamn crazy. But so amazingly, we went with 3 separate storylines there, 3 separate things that we would each do as a GM for a day. So let's move to a final thought before we kick into the next segment over here. Rob, what do you got for a final thought?
Bryce is going to keep it up. Like I said before, Bryce is going to push that 40 homer mark. So that is, it's not really a final thought, I guess, but a kind of a final projection there. I think that he's going to get hot. He's going to play well enough to keep the Phillies in contention. Ultimately, maybe they fall a little bit short. I'm not going to make a prediction on that right now, but he's going to keep hitting the ball as well as he has been.
My final thought is I would have been stopped on Fear Factor simply by a pickle. Other people out there eating animals, getting stung by bees, doing whatever, this weird shit, put a pickle in front of me on a plate and say, eat it, and I'm out. You ever seen that fat chick with the Brussels sprout on that My Overweight Life or whatever the hell it is on one of those ridiculous shows?
I don't watch
She
that
starts
shit.
getting, neither do I. It's a YouTube clip, man. She starts gagging just at the smell of it, and it's disgusting. And she's like, "Oh my god, get me chocolate, get me cake, or whatever the hell it is." And she won't just taste the Brussels sprout. That's me with a pickle. I'm not fucking with it. That is my final thought. Fear Factor defeats me with just a pickle. That'll be it for Kap We Trust. You can always rate and review our podcast. We would appreciate it if you did so at your, well, wherever the hell you listen to your podcast, whether it's Google Play, Apple, Stitcher Radio, Spreaker, Spotify, SoundCloud has some commercials on there for us. And then you can always go eat at Just Food, 215-794-FOOD. That's 215-794-3663. I remember it because it's two fucking numbers, Steve. Treat yourself. Take it home. They have two store locations. I always forget about the second, but Steve and I went the other day for breakfast over at the Del Val College, Del Val Mart there. It is wonderful. I highly suggest you do that. And then also go visit our friend Asian Rob over there at his in-store location in Bucks County, PA. Again, it's Just Food, 215-794-FOOD, 215-794-3663. Treat yourself. Take it home. Be sure to visit our website. We have new articles coming out each week. It's www.alwaysnextyearpodcast.com. Subscribe to the rest of our shows as well, or listen. Since you subscribe to us, you'll get all of them anyway. Listen to everything. We're great here over at ANYP. We'll see you guys on the other end for Backyard Beers and Football, where Steve's going to sit in. It's going to be fantastic. He's already one beer deep. Should be great.
A fighting man I used to be, revered and feared through Killarney. Now I'm back to hitching with the wind. But if Mickey Flynn should ever find me, I'll throw me caution all behind me and square off on that son of a bitch again. He cracked open a river too, he beat me Sunday through and through, and so jiggle my unconscious frame. I won me healthy sheriff fights, well lucky son, still happy life since Mickey Flynn beat me dumb and lame.